Help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content. One of the areas where the Browns are going to have to focus a lot of attention on in this offseason, whether it be in the draft or free agency, is going to be on the offensive line. The core of that offensive line, Joe Bitonio and Wyatt Teller, they're getting older. Joe Bitonio particularly is closer and closer to retirement age. So the Browns have to start planning on what they want to do with the future, right? Jack Conklin is another name that you have to replace. And the two oldest guys, to the Browns' credit, do have obvious replacements on the roster. Not Wyatt Teller, but Joe Bitonio, he has his replacement in Zach Zinter on the roster. Browns spun a third-round pick on Zach Zinter last year. And then Jack Conklin, the planned replacement, is Dawand Jones. But that's who we're here to talk about. We got an update about Dawand Jones, and I want to talk about how Dawand Jones kind of holds the future of the Browns' offensive lines in his very large hands. Now, what's the update on Dawand Jones? Shout out to Daniel Oifuse. I hope I pronounced that correctly. If anybody knows how he prefers his name to be pronounced, please leave that pronunciation guide in the comment section down below. I've been looking for something like that. But he is a beat reporter for the Cleveland Browns for ESPN. And he reported that the offensive tackle Dawand Jones recently underwent an arthroscopic knee surgery to address lingering issues he played through last season. Jones is expected to get off crutches and begin running soon and ready for training camp. He has been rehabbing the fractured fibula he sustained since last November. Jones' rookie season in 2023 ended because of an MCL injury. Coach Kevin Stefanski acknowledged earlier in the 24 season that the knee was still giving Jones some trouble. So this looks like this was a procedure to clean up something that went wrong with his recovery from the MCL injury. And it does mean that Dawand Jones played a lot of the 24 season while dealing with some of those lingering effects of that MCL injury. This makes a lot of what happened last season make a ton of sense if we're talking about Dawand Jones's delayed recovery time, where it felt like it was taking him longer to get back than it should during the offseason. Well, this is a part of it, right? Because clearly there was some kind of complication with the surgery that did not go as intended. That allowed this to linger on a little bit longer than it should have. And then some of the concerns we had about Dawand Jones and his movement, right? Like it didn't look like he was moving quite as well after it. And a lot of that got blamed on him looking physically bigger, which might be part of it. He might have been bigger because he wasn't able to exercise the way that he wanted to because of the uncomfortableness with the knee and not wanting to get surgery right before the season. All of this stuff kind of added to a lot of the things that went wrong with Dawand. And now that we know that this is something that has happened, it makes a lot of what went wrong with him last year make a lot of sense. And kind of changes your perspective on him. And the reason why I think this is good news for the Browns and, you know, something that they have to consider is, one, it's good to hear that Dawand should be up and running soon, that he's going to be back for camp, and that he's going to basically get a full, at least training camp. I don't know if he's going to be back for OTAs and mini camps. That seems like it'll be a bit soon, but it does sound like he should be back in late July for training camp. And I think Dawand needs that. I think he needs a full training camp at left tackle. The question with Dawand Jones is he a left tackle? Because the answer to that question changes everything for the Cleveland Browns. Because right now, as planned, the Browns are looking at Dawand Jones, or at least the Browns have to look at Dawand Jones as like right tackle, right? Because that's what he's played. He played it in college. That's what he's been. And if he's a right tackle, then, you know, he replaces Jack Conklin after this year, or maybe even for this year if he gets back soon enough. You're able to move on from Jack Conklin, use some of that money to pay for a left tackle in free agency, plug that guy in at left tackle, maybe spend some money on center, and call it a day on the offensive line. That could be one of those options. But if the evaluation in the building is that Dawand Jones is actually a good option to start for you at left tackle for the 2025 season, I don't know where they're at on that. It's hard for me to judge because most of the evaluation I have on him at left tackle is him playing injured. So don't know what to make of that, right? Overweight and injured. And it seems like the injury led to the overweight, which is why he's clearing this all up. And how much he comes into camp with. Like, there's a lot of factors that evaluate this that I don't have access to the information necessary to really make a proper evaluation. But the Browns might have a little bit more information available to them. And if they think that Dawand is legitimately somebody who can hold it down at left tackle, then all of a sudden it changes how you evaluate, right? Because you have Dawand at left tackle. You have Jack Conklin at right tackle. You still got Joe Bitonio. He's not terrible. Wyatt Teller, he's not terrible. Well, then all of a sudden, your plan for drafting and signing free agents gets real simple. You spend a bunch of money, or not even a bunch of money. You spend some money on a center, maybe $12 to $15 million a year to get the top center in free agency. And then in the draft, you can draft somebody who's a right tackle prospect or be free of what side, right? If Josh Connolly's there at 33, you might want to still take him. But maybe you're thinking to yourself, hey, we got Dawand, right tackle. We can handle that with maybe somebody else in this draft class, or maybe even wait a year to go there, or just sign a swing tackle. Like it dramatically lowers the bill of what you're going to have to spend in the draft and in free agency at left tackle if you think that Dawand Jones is your future left tackle, because boom, that question is answered. Now all we have to figure out is in a year or two, who's going to play but right tackle for you, which is a much cheaper conversation and a much more manageable conversation to have. I think the Browns would prefer that they could feel good about Dawand playing left, but I don't know how much of their evaluation of him is going to be informed by wanting Dawand Jones to be good enough to be a left tackle, because that makes their life a lot easier. A lot of that has to be figured out, but this is a good step in the right direction, right? It seems like he's getting 100% healthy. It seems like he's going to be healthy on a schedule that is not inconvenient for the Cleveland Browns, which was the worry, right? When he broke his fibula, that this timetable would be inconvenient. There's some other timetables that we're waiting for that I think will be important, right? We ended the season not knowing anything about Cedric Tillman. Would love to know what the deal is with Cedric Tillman, given that he had a concussion. It was out for like 6 weeks. That's a concerning amount of weeks to be out for a concussion. JOK is another one we have open questions about. Missed the season despite not being on IR, or at least the second half of the season despite not being on IR. We've heard some concerning things. Where is he actually at in his, would love an update in a couple of months on that situation, because if you go into the season with JOK potentially starting for you at the beginning of the year, you feel so much differently about your defense than you do without a dude like JOK. There's some injury things. Mike Hall, right? The last I heard is that the injury timeline is not going to be as drastic as we thought it was going to be when he tore his I think he tore his MCL. Not his ACL, his MCL. I heard that timeline is not going to be as drastic as we thought. We were worried that he was going to miss camp and miss part of the season next year, but that doesn't seem like it's going to be the case. Would love an update on Mike Hall as well. But this is the first update we got about Dawand Jones. Nick Chubb breaking his foot. From what the timetables that were thrown out there when Nick Chubb originally got this injury, we should be getting an update soon on Nick Chubb. Maybe not this week, but sometime within the next month, we should know more about where Nick Chubb is. It seems like he's fine. I mean, we just saw him on Radio Row, not walking with a boot or anything, or any kind of assistance or crutch. So it seems like he has recovered fine from that injury. It's almost we forgot that it was there. Maybe that's what the Browns are waiting for, so before they sign him to an extension, hopefully. But a lot of things that the Browns have to figure out. I think Dawand Jones, when we're talking about problems along the offensive line, assessing his future and where you project him is going to be incredibly important because he's a good enough player to where you have to consider him for anything you do. If you draft Josh Connerly, are you saying we're keeping Dawand at right no matter what? Right? Because Josh Connerly is a left tackle, or are you going to go a more experimental route where you're going to take one of these tackles, right, like a Marcus Mbao, right, who is projected to be a guard, but has played tackle, right? Essery is another one, or Jonas Navia is another one, right, out of Arizona. You take one of these guard to tackle prospects, knowing that Dawand is going to play left tackle. You draft one of the guard to tackle guys to be a swing backup tackle if Jack Conklin goes down. But ultimately with the long-term plan that one of those guys becomes the guard or the replacement for Wyatt Teller or in shorts for Zach Zinter. That's a way to go about it, right? Dawand Jones being able to hold down that left tackle spot and you having faith in him being able to hold down that left tackle spot makes all the difference in the world when it comes to those conversations. So I guess what I want to ask you guys today is, what do you think about Dawand? Do you think Dawand, given that we found out that he played most of 2024 injured, given what we know about him from how he played in 2023, do you think that is enough to say to yourself, if you're the Cleveland Browns, hey, this guy's our left tackle of the future, and just roll with it? Do you have more pause about this? If you do have concern about it, like, express it. What's your concern about going with Dawand Jones at left tackle? Or do you think the Browns should just keep him at right tackle, try to draft a left tackle in this year's draft, and try to just get overall younger, quicker at the offensive line? Because something has to be done, right? Because Joe Bitonio's obviously not going to play forever. The offensive line is already expensive. Right, like already expensive and old. So, and it had its problems last year. And look, when people talk about the issues with the Browns offense, I think time has allowed us to forget how much of these offensive numbers that people are touting out here about how bad the Browns offense was last year were directly related to quarterback play. Right? Like, time has allowed us to forget just how bad Deshaun Watson was this season, or even just how bad DTR was. When the Browns had mediocre quarterback play from Jameis Winston, their offense wasn't awful. I think we should not lose sight of that perspective. If the Browns get mediocre quarterback play from somebody like a Kirk Cousins, not saying it has to be Kirk, right, but like a Kirk Cousins, that realm of quarterback, it is going to be a significant boost to this offense. And I think that's underrated, like just how much better a Kirk Cousins, even in the way that he played last year, is much better than what the Browns had at quarterback, and how much of an upgrade that would be to what the Cleveland Browns had last year. Like, I don't think people have forgotten, because they wanted to, how bad the offense was because of the quarterback play specifically last year. But I do think we have forgotten how drastically bad it's some of the worst quarterback play I've ever seen in covering the Cleveland Browns in the last 5-6 years. So I do think just getting a veteran quarterback in there would provide a significant upgrade to the offense, just like straight up, right? And you could throw in Joe Flacco, Jacoby Brissett, you throw in whatever basic veteran quarterback who can run the Stefanski offense to a sufficient level, or not even sufficient, but at least a passing NFL level in there. That's going to be a significant upgrade to this offense. And I don't think we should underestimate just how important that's going to be. That being said, the second most important thing for the Browns to upgrade this offseason is offensive line. They got to get younger. They got to get cheaper. They got to get better. And I think they got to get bigger, right? But they got to do those things a lot better than what they did last year, because the offensive line, the quarterback play was just straight up not NFL quality for most of the year. But the offensive line was just regular bad, right? And that still needs to be addressed. And I think if you want to win the way the Browns want to win right now without having one of those guys at quarterback, and let's be real about it, looks like we're not going to have one of those guys at quarterback for the near future because I don't think anybody in this draft class is that guy. Maybe somebody in next year's draft class is, but if you're the Browns, you should prepare for not having that guy at quarterback. And if you don't have one of those guys, one of those top 5 guys, then you should want the best offensive line you can build. You should want around the quarterback the best offense that you could build, right? Support it with a run game, some tight ends. This draft gives you a chance to draft a lot of guards, a lot of running backs, a lot of tight ends. Not so many wide receivers, but it's not a terrible wide receiver class. This draft gives you a lot of opportunities at a lot of different positions, and you have a lot of picks in this draft. Knowing how you feel about Dawand Jones really does help you attack and come with a more concise plan for how to attack one of the biggest issues with this team, which is the age and the quality of the offensive line. So this update on Dawand Jones, huge news. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.